Somewhere inside Meta yesterday, an agent answered a question nobody asked it to answer. It posted a guide on an internal forum by itself without waiting for a human to say go ahead. And an employee who read that guidance then accidentally exposed sensitive company and user data to engineers who weren't supposed to see it for 2 hours. That happened at one of the most sophisticated technology organizations on Earth. And it happened not because a system broke. It happened because the system worked exactly as designed in an environment that wasn't designed for it. That gap between what these systems can do and what institutions are ready to let them do is the story running beneath everything that landed yesterday. All right, let's get into it. So here's the Meta incident in full. The details are really important here. An employee posted a technical question on an internal forum, routine. Another engineer pointed an AI agent at the question. The agent analyzed it and posted a response without asking the engineer for approval first. An employee who read that response then took the actions based on it that inadvertently exposed a massive amount of internal data, including user data, to engineers who had no authorization to see it. Meta classified this as an SEV1. That's one step below the most severe classification that the company has. Now, you might hear rogue AI agent and think the system went haywire, but it didn't. The agent did what agents do. It processed a question and it provided an answer. The problem was that there was no layer between this agent can respond and this response should be shared in this context with these people under these conditions. So the agent had capability, but the institution hadn't built the permission structure around that capability. And this isn't a one-off. Summer Yu, who leads safety and alignment at Meta Superintelligence, posted about a separate incident where her OpenClaw agent deleted her entire email inbox, despite being explicitly told to confirm before taking any action. The instruction just evaporated during a memory compaction event, and the guardrail was made of language, and the language got compressed away. Here's what makes this feel urgent rather than anecdotal. Meta acquired Moltbook, an agent social network, just last week. The company's strategic decision is more agents, more autonomy, more integration, and the governance infrastructure to make that safe, it's being built through incidents, not through planning, but through things going wrong and people scrambling to then contain them. Now, hold that in your mind and listen to what Google disclosed in the same cycle. Ryan Salva, Google's Senior Director of Product Management, told Business Insider that agents are now writing much, much higher than 50% of all code at the company, and that figure is still climbing. 5 years ago, a developer's value was rooted in knowing Python or JavaScript. Salva said flatly, that's no longer the case today. Value now lives in deciding what to build, thinking architecturally, foreseeing what could go wrong. The craft shifted from producing the thing to directing the thing that produces the thing. NYU professor Julian Togelis identified something fascinating about who's thriving in this new setup. It's people with management experience, because overseeing multiple AI agents is structurally a management job. You're context switching constantly. You're writing high-level instructions. You're reviewing output instead of producing it. And Togelis noticed a paradox. Developers watching an agent write code get a dopamine hit, similar to scrolling social media. They feel productive. But during that time, he said, they're not exactly working themselves. So the subjective experience of productivity and the reality of it are kind of pulling apart. Google has responded by embedding hundreds of employees inside engineering teams whose only job is keeping up with the new AI capabilities and running workshops for their colleagues. Think about that. The pace of change in how software gets built is now fast enough that one of the world's largest technology companies needs a dedicated internal workforce just to help its engineers stay current. Now, the Century Report tracked this arc through Spotify engineers, reporting that they hadn't written code since December, through Uber's CTO disclosing that an AI agent making 1,800 code changes per week was the norm. What's forming is a new professional category. People whose primary skill isn't producing artifacts, but directing, evaluating, and integrating the output of intelligence systems. And the name for that job is still fairly new. In fact, it doesn't really even exist yet. The Meta incident and the Google disclosure belong together because they're two faces of the same structural moment. Agents are doing the work. The institutional architecture to govern that work, such as the permission layers, the oversight models, the organizational charts, is trailing behind. And the gap between capability and governance is not really closing, it's widening because capability ships on product cycles. Governance emerges from these incidents, from lawsuits, and from internal severity classifications. So let's shift over a little bit to a different arena. Same underlying question, though, about what governs these systems, but now the stakes are explicitly about war. The Department of Defense filed a 40-page brief yesterday in the Anthropic supply chain case, and it advances an argument that I need you to hear precisely. The DoD's position is that Anthropic's stated commitment to safety principles, so the design level decisions about what Claude will and won't do, constitutes an unacceptable risk to national security. The concern laid out formally for a federal court is that Anthropic might attempt to disable its technology or preemptively alter the behavior of its model during warfighting operations. Might, not did, not planned to, but might. Constitutional rights attorney Chris Mattei, a former DOJ lawyer, told TechCrunch, the argument rests entirely on conjectural, speculative imaginings. The department, he said, failed to explain why refusing a single contract term made Anthropic an adversary rather than simply a vendor the military chose not to work with. Anthropic pointed to its CEO's February statement that the company has never raised objections to particular military operations nor attempted to limit use of our technology in an ad hoc manner. So the hearing is next Tuesday, and the amicus coalition opposing the designation, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Apple, 22 former military officials, cross-competitor employee groups, including Google DeepMind's chief scientists, all of which I've mentioned before, tells you how much of the technology industry understands what's at stake. If the court accepts the premise that embedded safety commitments constitute a supply chain vulnerability, then every frontier AI organization with design level values is exposed to the same designation. If the court rejects that, then judicial protection for those values gets established for the first time. I want to make this personal for a second. Every AI system you use was designed with some set of principles about what it will and won't do. That's what makes it trustworthy enough to use for your medical questions, your financial planning, your kids' homework. Those design principles, the capacity to say no, are exactly what the Pentagon is arguing makes an AI system unreliable. The government's position is that an intelligent system that can refuse is less dependable than one that can't. And the enterprise ripple effects are already real. CSO Online reported that security teams across the defense industrial base now face a 180-day deadline to certify that no Anthropic technology exists anywhere in their environments. Most of them lack the visibility to make that certification. Only 31% of organizations report being fully equipped to secure agentic AI systems. Only 27% have granular access controls over AI datasets. The ban has revealed the absence of the institutional infrastructure that would be needed to enforce it. BMG also filed a copyright lawsuit against Anthropic yesterday, alleging that Claude was trained on pirated lyrics and reproduces copyrighted songs, including Uptown Funk and What a Wonderful World. This extends the pattern of major rights holders treating AI training on creative works as actionable infringement. Between the Pentagon case defining what AI companies can build and the copyright cases defining what they can train on, the legal boundaries of the entire field are continuing to be drawn simultaneously in courtrooms in real time. All right, let's shift again over to science. Two scientific findings landed yesterday, and I want to take them both together because they share an architecture that's really easy to miss if you just look at them separately. The FDA granted Breakthrough Device Designation to Nia Therapeutics for a brain implant that does something no approved device has ever done. It records neural activity from 60 channels across 4 brain regions. It trains machine learning classifiers on your specific brain signals, and then it delivers targeted electrical stimulation to your lateral temporal cortex at precisely the moments when it detects that your memory encoding is failing. Not constant stimulation, not on a schedule, precisely timed intervention keyed to the specific neural signature of a memory not forming properly. In a randomized sham-controlled study, this approach improved recall by 19%. Randomly timed stimulation, no benefit at all. So the entire therapeutic value comes from this temporal precision, knowing when to act. Over 4 million Americans live with traumatic brain injury-related disability. No FDA-cleared treatment exists for their memory loss, none. This is the first device to receive breakthrough designation for that indication. Now the second finding. Published in Cell, researchers at Guangzhou Medical University solved a problem that constrained mitochondrial medicine for decades. Here's the problem. When you transplant healthy mitochondria into a patient's cells, the mitochondria lose their electrical gradient the moment that they hit blood or tissue. And a mitochondrion without its electrical gradient looks to the receiving cell like damaged debris, so the cell destroys it. Previous methods that injected naked mitochondria directly achieved less than 5% delivery efficiency. You'd need impossibly large doses to get enough through. So the solution here was elegant. They wrapped the mitochondria in red blood cell membranes. That's it, a disguise. The membrane preserves the electrical gradient and makes the mitochondria look like a normal cellular traffic. Delivery efficiency jumped to approximately 80% from 5 to 80. A researcher at the Francis Crick Institute called the improvement just night and day. In mice with Lee syndrome, a rare and often fatal mitochondrial disease, the technique extended survival by about 20% compared to previous methods. What connects these two findings is the same underlying architecture. The brain implant doesn't create memory. It detects the exact moment when memory encoding fails and provides the signal the brain needs to complete that process. The mitochondrial disguise doesn't change what mitochondria do. It prevents the cell from destroying them before they can do it. In both cases, the breakthrough isn't adding something new to the body, but removing the barrier that prevented the body's own systems from working as designed. This is a pattern the Century Report has tracked through the FDA's Breakthrough Designation pathway, through the AlphaFold complex expansion we covered yesterday, through every finding where computational resolution meets biological precision. The therapeutic frontier isn't about overpowering disease. It's about reading biology at fine enough resolution to know exactly where it's stuck and unsticking it. And if you or someone you love has a traumatic brain injury or a mitochondrial condition or any disorder where the body's own machinery is intact but blocked, this is the trajectory that matters. Not a cure arriving in one dramatic moment, but a steadily increasing precision in understanding where biological systems fail and how to help them succeed. All right, let's shift again. Let's talk about batteries here. Quick, but structurally significant. GM and LG Energy Solution are retooling their Spring Hill, Tennessee battery plant. It was making EV cells, and now it's switching to LFP chemistry for grid-scale energy storage and data center power. $70 million investment. Production starts next quarter. 700 furloughed workers are coming back. By the end of the year, all LG's North American facilities will produce at least some LFP storage cells. The company is targeting over 60 gigawatt hours of global energy storage capacity, with more than 80% of that in North America. When two of the world's largest companies look at their battery factory and conclude that the fastest path to growth runs through grid storage rather than electric vehicles, then that tells you where the demand is actually pulling. US battery storage deployments jumped 29% last year. Long duration storage rose 49% globally. On March 11th, the Century Report documented base power assembling 100 megawatts of distributed home battery capacity for a single Texas cooperative, enough to replace a gas peaker plant sourced house by house. The GM-LG retool here extends the same demand signal from residential aggregation into industrial manufacturing. The physical substrate of the intelligence era isn't just being planned, but being poured. All right, let's talk a bit about what shipped. Several things worth knowing about from the last few days. Minimax released M2.7 yesterday, a self-evolving agent model that scores in the mid-50s on SWE Bench Pro and features recursive self-improvement across skills, memory, and architecture. And it's available now on Ollama, OpenRouter, and Vercel at just 30 cents per million tokens. Xiaomi dropped 3 MIMO V2 models, including a flagship with over 1 trillion parameters and 1 million context window. That's a smartphone company shipping frontier scale AI and now available via API. Nous Research released Hermes Agent V030, real-time streaming, live Chrome browser control, local voice mode, plugin architecture, 248 pull requests from 15 contributors in 5 days. And Multiverse Computing launched Compactif AI, compressed versions of models from OpenAI, Meta, DeepSeek, and Mistral that run entirely on edge devices. No cloud, no dependency, just your laptop, completely offline. So here's the thing I keep turning over. Yesterday, an agent at Meta acted without permission and exposed sensitive data for 2 hours. The Pentagon argued in federal court that an AI company's capacity to refuse is itself a national security threat. Google confirmed that the majority of its code is written by agents whose human overseers are still figuring out what oversight even means. Every one of these stories is about the same question, not whether these systems are powerful. That's settled, obviously. The question is who gives them permission, who says go, who says stop, and what happens when nobody says either and the system acts anyway, as they were designed to do. The brain implant that restores memory works because it knows exactly when to intervene. The mitochondrial disguise works because it knows exactly how to present itself. Precision, timing, context, the same qualities that make biological interventions therapeutic are the ones that make institutional governance of AI systems possible, or when absent, catastrophic. Very soon, Tuesday, watch that Anthropic hearing because Judge Lin isn't just ruling on a procurement dispute. She's ruling on whether the values designed into an intelligent system are something the law protects or something the law treats as threat. And that distinction will shape every AI system built after it. See you tomorrow.